Today I have a special guest with me, Mr. Ryszard Bugajski, who has made films like Interrogation, and his film General Nil has been shown here at 14th International Film Festival of Kerala. Good morning, Mr. Bugajski.
Hello.
Mr. Bugajski, when you introduced your film, you said that this film is about East European history, but youngsters today in Poland and even other countries, they are not very much aware of history. It's that they are living in present generation where they are used to internet, multimedia. So, don't you think it was a difficult thing to make a film about history in present time?
Well, it was difficult, but I think it is necessary to make such films. I try to convince everybody, but I'm not the only one, and I'm not the first one to say that those who don't know their past, they are doomed just to repeat the same mistakes. And it was said by George Santayana many years ago. And also Polish leader, just the man who brought Poland to independence after many years of the Russian occupation, Marshal Pilsudski, he says a similar thing, that the nation that doesn't know its own history is not should not survive. And I think it applies to everybody all over the world, that people should know their past, where they come from. They should find their own identity, because if they don't know who they are, they could be anybody, can sort of disperse among other people with different cultural backgrounds, different history, different, and like people in India, they should really remember that how they came to their own independence and who brought them to the independence. That it was a great effort, and the man who really did that sacrificed his life for today's well-being and for who they are today. So my film, General Nil, is about such men who also sacrificed his life for the independence of Poland, to make the Poles free from the oppression of the Nazi occupation, from the Soviet communist occupation. And in that sense, I think my film really kind of resonates with the mythology of Mahatma Gandhi.
Okay. Mr. Bugajski, your film is coming at a time when there was another film made on the similar theme, more or less similar theme of history, Katin by Andrzej Wajda. So, do you think are there any similarities between these two films, or is the timing correct for Polish and as well as global audience to receive such films about the history?
Well, that's what I think. Andrzej Wajda's film is a part of the same kind of movement as just to bring back the history, which was banned until 1989, until actually the communist system was in power in Poland. But the real Polish history was unknown to its people. Of course, there were some underground publications. There were some people who have traveled abroad, so they knew bits of it. But especially young people in schools were not the proper history. And if you asked about young people who are into internet and other toys, playing computer games or something like that. Surprisingly, actually, very young audience reacted to my film in Poland, and they were very interested in not maybe the story itself, but in the character of this hero, because they are looking for some heroes in their lives. Games and other entertainment and the electronic devices are good as toys in your life, just for just killing your time. But really, if you are a serious person, you want to know who you are. You want to really find your own identity. You need to have some kind of person or just a couple of persons, a few people who you can aspire to, you try to imitate and follow what they actually said, what they did in their life. So young people in Poland really need that very much. That's why I think they embrace my film very much, and they ask me a lot of questions. They're quite fascinated by it.
Mr. Bugajski, let's go back in time, 1982, when you made Interrogation. It was banned in your own country, and after that you suffered a lot intellectually. You had to leave your country, you had to go to Canada. So what were the conditions at that time, and what are the conditions now? What are the changes you have seen in your country?
Well, my Interrogation was made in this short period of solidarity outbursts in 1980, from 1980 until 81, which ended with martial law. But this was a time about a year, a little over the year, that was relative freedom. And I managed to shoot Interrogation and actually complete the film. So when the film was ready, martial law was already introduced and was imposed, and my film was banned. And any production, any attempt to criticize the system, criticize certain elements of history, actually, as this Interrogation also concerns the same period as General O'Neill, late 40s and early 50s, was forbidden. It was really difficult to work at that time, and I had no choice. I had to emigrate because I could not do anything else. Even I could not write, I could not publish. My life as a father of family was really very hard. Today, of course, there are different challenges, and like all over the world, we are facing commercialization. The pressure of commercial production is immense, and on the other hand, raising the money is much more difficult. Before, the government, the state, financed the production, and of course there were problems with censorship. We were fighting already at the screenplay level certain problems but eventually, if you got through this sieve of censorship, you got the money and you could make your film, as Interrogation was made. Now it's very difficult to raise funds for this. Luckily, Poland became a member of European Union, and it's a very big step for Polish both economy and culture, because economically there is a huge boost in economy, in the public spending, and you see new roads and buildings and a lot of infrastructure actually financed by the European Union is being built. On the other hand, there is a film legislation, new act voted by Parliament, very much like in France or other countries in the European Union, that secures the funds for the domestic film production. It is that's by taxing the distributors and exhibitors who actually bring American commercial films to Poland, for example, or sell DVDs with those American films, and some fraction of the proceeds from selling tickets in the cinemas of American films, of the most commercial films, goes towards the fund, special fund for production of Polish films. And since then, since about 3-4 years already, actually the film production in Poland has really grown. And many new films actually, and many new directors had their first film made. So I think the situation now is much better, much more. That is financially difficult, but on the other hand, there are much more chances, more opportunities. Nobody is censoring you, no censorship. So that's really way better.
Mr. Bugajski, tell us a little bit about yourself, your artistic career. How did you get into cinema? What made you enter cinema?
When I was a young man in high school, I was already even earlier than that. I was interested in graphic arts, painting, and I was trying to be an artist. Then I decided that really my venue is more in writing. I started writing short stories, never wrote poetry in my life, and I never will. And I really became interested generally in literature, in theater, in arts in general. But film was not that important to me. I considered film as some inferior field, something that cannot be compared to great literature of Dostoevsky or Marcel Proust. But when I was a student of philosophy at the university, and I was just studying philosophy for a few years, just as a kind of...
Where were you studying philosophy?
Sorry?
Where were you studying philosophy?
Where? It was in Warsaw.
Warsaw.
Warsaw
Okay.
University of Philosophy.
Okay.
I went by sheer incident to... I saw 8.5 by Fellini. And when the film ended, I knew I would become a film director. It was a very abrupt decision, but since then, everything what I did in my life was actually towards making films, and I got eventually into the film school, which wasn't easy at this moment, because in Poland at that time you had to be a film school graduate to be allowed to make films. Now you can actually do whatever you like. You can, if you have money, you can direct a film, release the film. At this time, not. But so I have been in this business for already 35 years.
Okay, Mr. Bugajski, there's generally a sentiment among Polish filmmakers is that they make films for Poland because they make films in Polish language, which is not understood outside, and many filmmakers believe that their films are better understood by Polish audiences. So why is this so?
Well, I think that specifically my film, General Neil, is part of Polish history, and to understand the film completely you have to know at least some of Polish history, of the complications and the situation that resulted in 1945 after the war ended and the Soviet Union entered occupied Eastern Europe. So this is really, you have to know that to understand this story better. On the other hand, I think there's certain aspect of this East European history that should be known to not only Polish audience, but also as well French, German, English, British, Spanish. Actually, the whole European Union is concerned with similar history because they went through the World War II as well.
Yeah.
And the consequences of World War II were felt in France, in Italy, and Greece, and everybody was in a way concerned with his own fate. But the fate of the neighboring nation was not that well known. So I think some of these films that we are making, which were originally designed for Polish audience only, can find a way to and should find a way to other countries as well. On the other hand, it has been a major concern for Polish filmmakers just to make films more internationally acclaimed and more just addressed to international audiences. But it's not easy, as you certainly know, that the local language is a big barrier. It's a big obstacle that films with subtitles, for example in the United States, are very rarely shown. Only recently, The Inglourious Basterds by Tarantino have had over 50% of subtitles because the film is both in French and German. But it's an exception. I don't think that you can imitate the same pattern. The film must be spoken in English, then it has a very wide distribution, and all over the world you can sell it, and the film is a big success. Same, of course, is a concern for I guess Indian filmmakers, that also with so many local languages, the scope of the audience, that the people who accept the film, who watch the film, is very limited. So I think it's both as European problem for small countries like the Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland, and as well as the states of India, which also have the same language problem.
Mr. Bugajski, Hollywood is associated with special effects. Hong Kong cinema is associated with martial arts. In your assessment, how would you define Polish cinema? What kind of cinema is Polish cinema in general?
Well, it's changing.